Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we got a bit of an information dump in the form of another Waterline video. These Waterline videos are the quarterly videos that Wargaming puts out that keep us in the loop. They go over what they've done already and what their plans are for the next half of the year or so. And they release a lot of information with these Waterline videos normally. However, this one is, there's some really interesting stuff and some stuff that we've been waiting for that's finally been announced or we're finally being given updates on. But honestly, a lot of what they were going over in the video that was put up on their channel was a lot of retreading of what they've already done, and then a little bit of new information and a couple of very exciting announcements and a couple of concerning announcements as well. So you can watch the video of this, or you can check out the article on the game's website. I'm going to go off of the article because they give just a little bit more information in the article than in the video. If you want to check that out, the link to it will be in the description down below or in a pinned comment or both. So we're going to go ahead and get on into it. Again, we're just talking about the highlights of what was released. There's a bunch of other smaller bits of info that were released as well, but we are looking at the highlights. So starting off with what's new. Well, what's completely new is, first off, we're getting a line of Spanish cruisers. They didn't really say too much about them, and I can bet that most of us were expecting either a line of Spanish destroyers or Spanish cruisers, because the Canaries was released earlier last year and was the first ship of Spain included in the game in its own little nation. It wasn't chalked in with the Pan-Euro line. I honestly was expecting them to do more of a destroyer line first, because you could very easily do a real still Spanish destroyer line from tier 1 to tier, I would say at least 8, perhaps even 9 with some tweaks, and then the tier 10 would probably have to be paper. But you could also do a Spanish cruiser line, I do believe, up until probably 5 or 6, and then you would have to bring in the paper ships. But granted, since they did add in the Canaries, yeah, okay, I can see them going with the cruisers at first. What we do know is that they are going to all have alternative fire modes. Every single one of them, apparently. However, again, it's still in testing. It could change, but they did mention that in the video that they were going to have the alternative firing mode. Now, they did also mention that the gun range will be from 120 millimeters at lower tier to 254 millimeters at higher tier, so I think we can safely say these are more than likely going to be light cruisers. But, Spain, more ships, cool. It's more stuff for the game. That's always good news, especially when it's, tech line stuff and free stuff as well. They also announced that we are getting 2 new super ships because, well, yep, that's how the game do be now. And one of them, I can tell you, is going to be very popular because it's a Super Petropavlovsk with the Novosibirsk. That's going to be Super Petro now. That's going to be fun. I bet you anything the Novo is just going to be like the original Petro but lower in the waterline, and I bet the guns are going to be a little bit more accurate. That's really all you would have to do to the Petropavlovsk for it to be a super ship. I mean, for the year and a half that the thing was out, that they didn't raise it up out of the water, it's such a difficult ship to kill back then. Now, nowadays, if you catch broadside like all the other large Soviet ships in the game, it does get vibe checked to hell, but I bet you that's what they're going to do here. And to my knowledge right now, there haven't been any images released of these ships just yet. They might release it in a dev blog in the future, but as of right now, this is what we have to go off of. Now, the Devastation is going to be a new super British battleship based off of the Conqueror. They could have called it the Super Conqueror. There was an opportunity, and they did not take it. So Super Conqueror, I'm not sure what they'll do there. If you're going to go off the Conqueror, it's going to be a giant HE spammer. Maybe the Super Heal is also going to be even more super free, which, they're kind of running into that problem with this. The Conqueror is already super gimmicky. Now they have to make a super ship that is somehow more gimmicky than the Conqueror, because, again, it's got the Super Heal. It can regen that back. Again, like with the Petropavlovsk, what they could do is go to the original nerfed Conqueror, where its citadel was below the waterline, and it had the super hill, and it had the 11.5, 11.7 kilometer concealment. That thing was pretty busted. They could go back to that. They might take a route kind of with the Marlborough and keep bolting more guns onto it, or it could just be an inflated Conqueror. So, yeah. We'll see what happens with that. Now, one bit of news that is not going to be that well received is that we are getting our first ever hybrid destroyer. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Wargaming has yet again introduced another Fletcher that isn't the Johnston. Wargaming, I thought you liked making money. Give us a Johnston already. So, we are getting the Halford, which is one of, I believe, 6 Fletchers that did have aircraft facilities on board. So the Halford was a Fletcher, and she was launched in 1942, and she carried, let me pull it up here real quick. She carried, I believe it was 3 float planes. No, I'm sorry, 1. She carried 1. She had 1 catapult. It looks kind of weird when you look at the pictures of her. It's, yeah. I don't know how they're going to cram a bunch of planes on here, unless the one plane just has, I don't know, a bunch of bombs or torpedoes. I'm pretty sure that just like with the Tone class, this was probably for either spotting or weather observation and wasn't meant for offense, because if you don't know, that's literally what the Tone was used for. It was for weather and scouting and not offense. They didn't really carry munitions, but I'm sure, of course, they can. You can bolt anything to a plane as long as it can still fly. So, yeah. Not sure how they're going to make it work. It might just be like the catapults we already have, where despite the ship only carrying 1 or 2 planes on the catapults at a time, maybe a couple in reserve depending upon what ship you're talking about, the catapult just chunks 6 fighter aircraft into the air. So yeah. Now, if you are wondering, the Halford didn't keep the aircraft on her and the catapult on her for her entire service life. It was replaced with another torpedo tube set in 1943. So they tried it. It apparently didn't work out that well. And yeah. Now, it's an interesting idea, and I do think the ship is a historical ship. It would be a nice little oddity and a one-off, but as I'm sure, as we've seen in the past, it's going to become a thing. So, we'll see. We shall see how that works. And finally, West Virginia 44 is getting released. They said that she will be entering into closed testing in the spring, which usually means from testing to release date is about 4 months. So if she's being released in the spring for testing, there's a good chance she'll be coming out sometime in, I'd say, mid to late summer, probably August, September-ish. I doubt they'll be able to get her out in time for 4th of July. I believe that's what the Kentucky or the Idaho, whatever that American Des Moines hybrid monstrosity is. Now, we do know the next dockyard ship now is going to be the Daisen. That is the fast Japanese battleship with a small number of guns and torpedoes. She is going to be the next dockyard ship. She's also apparently very fast, but does take forever to turn. So we have that to look forward to. I mean, it looks like a neat ship. If the guns are accurate, it could work. The torpedoes, if you have a fast enough ship, and that's one thing that happens a lot with brawling ships in this game. They release a ship for brawling, and it's got 1 or 2 things with it. Either it's too slow, the secondaries don't really have the range. The German battleships and battle cruisers are generally fast enough and have enough secondary range to get within brawling distance. So if the ship is fast, I could see the torpedoes being quite effective in a joust when you need them. And if the guns are also accurate, because they do say she has accurate main battery guns, but a small number, so we'll see how that works. I'm fairly interested in it, and shoot, the Schroeder Dockyard wraps up here pretty soon, so it'll probably be a patch or 2 without it, and then we'll probably have it jump right back in. Now, something I'm really, really excited about is that we will no longer have to wait to go back into a battle with the same ship. They're finally doing away with this mechanic. This is something that I have been wanting them to do for such a long time. I'm tired of going to a battle, either slipping up in the first few minutes or the game just being an absolute romp one way or the other, and myself being one of the early ones to get taken out. And then you got to sit there and wait for the ship to come back. Now, I've said in the past that when this does happen, you know, just go ahead, pop into a battle with another ship, be grinding up a second line, broaden your horizons, which, true, that is a good mechanic to encourage that, but with the way that today's battles go to where one side can just get completely rolled over, if you're one of those players that, let's say you go to a flank and it was only you and 2 other ships, but the entire enemy team goes there, and then now you're sunk within the first 4 or 5 minutes, it does suck that you have to sit there for 15 or 20 minutes when you're waiting for your ship to come back, especially if it's like a ship you just got done grinding, or if it's like a premium ship that you just bought that you want to play a lot of. It is really frustrating. So they are working on a mechanic that they say to be able to take your ship back into the battle, which, I mean, from their side of things too, that means you get to play more battles, which you spend more time in the game, you're more inclined to buy stuff when you do that. They also note that they do have a new mode coming out for April Fools, which, you know, those are always pretty fun. So, yep, that's happening. The Seychilles map, that map is planning on being released apparently in this spring, which is very cool. They did note that they weren't able to preserve the unique geography of the Seychelles 100%. They did have to make a couple of changes here and there, but overall the map will be more accurate to the geographical location that it's based off of than previous maps. I think that's a cool idea with the maps in this game, because right now most of them, kind of like the theming and stuff, is inspired by the location that it's based off of, like the Faroe Islands, but it doesn't really have much geographical likeness to the actual location. The Seychelles map is going to change that, and hopefully we see more and more of that in the future. Now, something else that did get announced is that they are in fact still working on the aircraft carriers, the odd tier aircraft carriers. Those are apparently in testing, or soon to be back in testing here shortly, and they state that they are still in testing to be support carriers. Thankfully, they've kind of abandoned the method that we heard of the last time we heard about these aircraft carriers, and that they could stun enemy ships and deny them the use of their damage con and get damage that way. But now, and this does sound pretty interesting, now they are going to be able to drop minefields from their planes, which sounds intriguing. And they are also going to have the smoke generator that you can deploy from the planes as well, which I think is a really solid concept to go with these support Cvs. They didn't mention if they were still working with the chaff mechanics, where you could drop chaff over a target and it would hide them from enemy radar. I thought that was a pretty cool mechanic as well, and that's one that's more based in reality than some other mechanics in this game. So they're in closed testing, or will be in closed testing in the near future apparently, and then they are going to go from there with it. Which, I mean, honestly, it is kind of time for them to bring those carriers back into the game. I know CV bad, but hey, look, there are players that really enjoyed playing those carriers, and the fact that they were removed is, you know, sucks for those guys, and I'm glad to see that they're finally starting to make their way back into the game. And if they do come out in a more of a support role, I think it could be a good addition to the game if done right. Will it be done right? I do not know. We shall see, and time will tell. So guys, that's the major highlights for this Waterline entry. Again, there's a bit more information that was included with 1 or 2 other smaller changes. If you want to check out everything, link is in the description down below to the video and to the article. If you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel while you're down there as well. We're getting very close to 50,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.